Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to Suns and Shadows Cast with Jeff and Kev. And we got another doozy for you this round. We got Max Headroom from the 80s. I can't do the glitch, so we're just going to get right into it. Kevin, you ever seen this one before?
Only in my memories, like my darkest, cloudiest memories, do I remember Max Headroom. I think I saw an episode as a kid, but I only really remember him from commercials. I never really got to sit and watch the show.
Was it the new Coke commercials, or is my memory incorrect?
I'm pretty sure it was New Coke.
Okay.
I know it was Coke, but I don't know if it was Coca-Cola or New Coke.
That's what I'm not quite sure if I remember correctly myself, but I do seem to remember the commercials. I kind of remember the show. I only seem to remember like maybe the first couple episodes and a moment here and there. So when we were rewatching, I actually feel like I've watched it all the way through once before, but it might have been when it was on Sci-Fi Channel, because my memory gets a little foggy because this was like mid 80s. So you're right in the middle of like wrestling and cartoons and baseball and everything else that's going on, Atari video games, all the fun stuff right in the middle of that. So I honestly don't remember how much I might have seen as a kid, but I know I saw it at least on Sci-Fi Channel. And of course, the awesome Shop Factory DVD set. I know you bought this recently, but I watched this for the first time now since I bought the DVD set just for the purposes of this podcast. And watching it this round, I'm like, okay, now I feel like I've seen the show entirely, and I will now remember it for quite a while.
Yeah, and the Shout Factory discs, god damn, that transfer was pretty, wasn't it?
For a DVD set from a few years ago, yeah, this show looks like it needs a goddamn once over for a Blu-ray scan. I don't know if it's possible to do a 2K remaster on this. I'd love it. I'd say this is one of the best shows that should be on Blu-ray, so we don't lose it to time, because it's still overall. I know I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but this show is timeless. It still has messages to this day that will dive right into relations to the streaming services that we got, to cable networks we got, to bubbles burstings, to ratings talk, to all across the board, how news is treated, how news reporters are treated, how news is treating stories. Like, it's all across the board. Like, this show, even though it is, I think you said it best in some of our pre-show talks, the show is dated, but not to the point where it doesn't still apply to things today. Where it is dated in is some of the technology they used. So if they had the use of cell phones back then, this might have been, they could have like jimmied this a little bit. So you see people picking up rotary phones with like vid cameras. It's like something out of Demolition Man, which, gee, I wonder where they got the idea from. Or they got it from other movies, books, whatever. Max Headroom was clearly a little bit ahead of its time during the mid 80s, often attributed to being one of the very first cyberpunk shows with a Western philosophy deeply infused.
I could see that. And I had to ask, and I don't remember if it was you that I asked or if it was just on the Facebook group.
We will see.
Why did this show get canceled? And the answer is not as simple as it was good or it was bad or there was ratings or there weren't ratings.
It's kind of, yeah.
This was a good show, and it got taken out from under the legs, taken out from underneath it, unfortunately. And I don't know if the commercials helped or crippled its ability to have a broader audience. Like, I remember my dad rented the movie once, and I think that's probably what I got to see of Max Headroom. And they thought it was stupid, like most things they did. And I never got to see it again until this last week. And it's like, what was to not like about that? Like, as you said, dated, yes, but it still holds up. Like, there are so many things in this show that still happen today, or so many things that happen in the show that they predicted. Like,
oh my God.
I'm sure if they would have kept Yeah, this would end up being like The Simpsons percentage wise if it would have kept going.
Yeah, the most I see could have seen this show going is probably about 4 to 5 seasons. I do not think this had the legs to go longer than that. But to answer your point, I couldn't even figure out an answer either, other than, it was canceled largely due to being in competition with like Miami Vice and like Dallas. And I'm thinking, this is a science fiction show. Ratings are not always as high as Dallas or Miami Vice, which are like straight reality shows. Got a futuristic show that's mocking like just about everything that's currently on TV. Max oftentimes is joking about commercial placements and how stupid they are and how they're interrupting everything, or making wisecracks about that's a horrible show. This should got canceled, or my show should be renewed for like forever. I should be on TV forever. I mean, you got a joke that's like probably poking too many bears, and so it's probably rubbing some people the wrong way. And I don't mean like viewers. Viewers are probably getting like, I wonder how much realism they really infused into this show, while executives are like, this is a little too close for comfort. We don't really want this on our screens. And oh hey, the ratings seem to be slipping just a tick. Oh, yet any show that got these ratings for Max Headroom these days would kill for those kind of ratings these days.
Yeah, exactly. And
I think any show would kill for this.
Yes. One of the things that the studio probably didn't like is, even in the series, talking about how meta it was, the bad guys are the news station that they work for half the time.
Half the time, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not all the time, but they're no angels. It's just the news team that like makes a difference. The board is just an evil board.
Well, yes and no. The board flips and flops. It's like any sort of political, and we're not going political discussion. It's very political. So if you're looking for shows of like modern that you could attribute this, there was a show on HBO called The Network a few years ago. There was a show on ABC a few years ago called Sports Night. They went into similar things. There's politics up the wazoo, as far as like, this board member doesn't like this board member doesn't like that. Oh, one of them's trying to take over the board of another network because he got fired from the other network. You got all sorts of like moving parts, and you don't think a show like Max Headroom, and on first glance you're looking at the image of this hokey 80s background and Matt Frewer in prosthetics and sunglasses and in a suit and tie, and you're looking at it like, that looks like some goofy ass show. No. It's funny at times, unintentional humor at times, but this is not some goofy ass, hokey, cheesy 80s science fiction show. This is actually a very well written show with great analogies for what was happening at the time, and it's a lot of fun. But this was definitely not going to work for kids like our age. Like, let's see, this came out 85 or something like that, or 87.
87, yeah.
I was like 9 years old at the time. This wasn't made for 9-year-olds. Yes, they had a kid in it. He wasn't that relatable. He was actually kind of one of the biggest pricks in the show. But he was very smart. But you can't relate to him. Who'd you relate to? You related to the animated Matt Frewer, Max Headroom. And, most of his kids, that's all we cared about with the show. And nothing else really matched up with us. Everything else was more for adults. The storylines were more adult. The acting was way more adult. They were, these days you can't even like smoke a cigarette on a show without going TVMA. Half the people in this cast were smoking cigarettes in their show.
Piss off. When the piss off got used. And I think asshole might have been said right after that, piss off. I'm not 100%, but I could have swore I heard something very similar on Night Court around that time too. So I don't know if they were like trying to get away with that, but I definitely know I heard piss off.
Like, there was a time when Max was doing one of his stutterings and he went like the and I'm like, but then his word finished with something else. But I'm like, did he just? I rewound it a couple times. I'm like, it almost sounded like he said "fuck," but it didn't. It didn't actually finish it. But the way the stuttering went, it's like, hey, wait a minute, did he just say "fuck"?
They probably did that on purpose. Like, I think that there's a lot of things that helped make this fail. Their humor was part of it, or I think their humor is how they handled it. And speaking of Matt Frewer and prosthetics, I didn't realize that it wasn't a computer generated image, that it was really him in a prosthetic with CG somewhat laced over the picture. Wow, is that really good?
Yeah, they did. That's the only way you could do that. Otherwise, computer graphics at that time, they couldn't pull that shit off. Like, holy cow. Anytime they did graphics, it was the overlay of the city and them trying to impose the TV screens on them.
Yeah, I was like, Gotham, is that you?
I know, right?
But it was really
that was
pretty though.
good. Yeah.
Like
I almost want to make a little
series,
mock-up of the Max Headroom city, but where the fuck would I put it in this room?
I don't know, but it kind of makes me think of that World of Tomorrow and Mask of the Phantasm that Joker's climbing around in. It's got the city in the background behind it.
I approve.
But I wanted to go back and say really quick how you were talking about kids weren't interested in the action happening beyond Max Headroom. Parents, I don't think, gave a shit or even realized that there was anything happening beyond Max Headroom. So I think
the
story got lost in translation, because watching this now, Max Headroom is just what they call the show. It's not about Max Headroom in any way, shape, or form. Right. He is almost Raymond in most of the episodes. There are two of the episodes where he doesn't appear in the story at all. They just have him in at a bumper.
Yeah, bumpers, or even in like quick throwaway scenes, like just like 2 seconds here, 5 seconds there.
Yeah, but
he's in every episode, but like the appearances, like in the second half of this, I'll say the second season, but it's largely the second half of the show. His appearances dwindle more and more and more, and they focus more on everybody else, including like say like Murray and Theora.
Yes, and that was okay, I guess, because like Theora, Murray, and Edison had a really neat dynamic to them.
Yes,
I want to say those three actors worked really well together. I don't know if it was
like
that
one episode for me.
Which one?
Oh, it just took one episode for me to believe that they all were really working together and gelling as a cast. It only took like the very first episode, and I'm like, I buy this. Sold. Most shows can usually take me a couple. I was like, oh, I know Sean Bean from like 9 other things. I don't believe him as Ned Stark in Game of Thrones. 3 episodes later, yeah, he's Ned Stark. Bucket. I don't remember anything else now.
And then once he gets killed, you're like, oh, that's right, it's Sean Bean.
Off with his head.
Poor bastard. No, I didn't mind the dwindling as much. It
didn't bother me, no.
No, but I noticed stories were there. I didn't need to have Max. Like, Matt Frewer was interesting enough. He was very good, and I don't know if we mentioned it prior already, but you and I were talking previously that Matt Frewer or Edison Carter is pretty much Kolchak for the 80s.
Yeah, I would say so.
It wasn't monsters that he was constantly having to fight. It was brought up to the 80s. It was corporate greed and sponsorship that he was fighting or trying to report on.
Trying to half the time.
Yeah, and he would get shut down, not by the cops, but by
his bosses.
The stations, basically. Yeah. And Murray had to be his editor, basically, and, berate him. But just like Tony and Kolchak, probably more so with Mr. Tambor, Murray is a lot more supportive when it comes to going against the boardroom.
Right. And also trying to remind him at times, like, hey, I know you're going to do this. Just watch it. Like the calm, cool, collected voice most of the time was, I know you're going to do this anyway. just try and watch what you're doing, or I'm going to approve this, but if the story don't pan out, if I pull the plug, you got to pull the plug. And there's this like mutual respect and understanding of like, I know I can push it from the both of them. I know I can push you this far. I know you can push me that far. And they always seem to know their boundaries. And when they finally broke that boundary in an episode later on, it actually had a greater impact on the overall story, and it stood out. And so they didn't waste like the goodwill they put in fans when they were butting heads over Patty in a later episode, because they both felt bad about how the former rival of Edison had lost his job, lost his way, got drunk, got killed. You know, I mean, he wasn't drunk at the end, but he got killed by that dreamscape sort of dealio going on. And that's when they were crossing lines with each other. And even Edison straight up assaulted a guy he was interviewing, and you got Murray standing there being like, you can't do that. That is totally against what we're allowed to do. And you just hurt your own self professionally with that. Like, you got to remember who you are and what you're doing here. Like, say what you want about what the look of this show is. There are messages in each and every episode that actually are very applicable to just common sense understanding of humanity, and a great character study for anything. You could watch this and be like, wow, maybe I need to think about a thing or two. A show from the fucking 80s can still deliver a quality message. This is one of those shows. I don't know why it's so damn overlooked and why this hasn't been looked at for its nostalgia run. I really don't. I know it's had I heard it was in Ready Player One. He reprised his character in that in a brief moment, but the fuck, Matt Frewer is not a megastar from the 80s. Like, people don't look at Matt Frewer and go, oh, Max Headroom. They think of like any number of other things he's done, because he's done quite a few things if you look at his filmography, but he never hit megastar after this. Yet Max kept doing like commercials for a few years. Like,
yeah,
this is a pop culture icon of the 80s that nobody fucking remembers. And if you do, it's because you're in our age group. But
yes,
I mean, just look at freaking Back to the Future Part 2. They took Max Headroom and converted that into other characters in the diner in the future that were serving everybody else. One of them was Michael Jackson, and the other was Ronald Reagan, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's right.
And so there was homages. Like, clearly people cared enough about this, whether it was the commercials, the movie, the original movie, and then the subsequent TV show that developed from that. Like, why this is just so obscure and untouched is beyond me. You could reboot this today. I don't know. I mean, I'd give it a chance. I look at the positive side. You know, I tried the new Quantum Leap. That just sucked. That's just me. If you like it, hey, that's great. I love the original. I tried the new one, didn't like it. But hey, you can at least give this one a goddamn shot. And then, you know, what's the worst that happens? Maybe there's a resurgence in popularity and we can get a Blu-ray release of this quality show. Takes nothing away from the original show. Just saying.
Yeah, like it's pretty
Goddamn,
enough
Matt
that it
Brewer is a
deserves
rock star in my book.
Agreed. And I wanted to ask, why hasn't he been, or why didn't he become a much bigger TV or movie star than he was? You can't see.
I have no fucking clue.
I've never not liked him in a movie. I've never not liked him in a show.
Well, he's done like what,
guy.
4 or 5 Stephen King movies, like, or TV shows or miniseries. Like, Jesus Christ.
Something to that effect. Trash Can Man was fucking amazeballs. Totally amazeballs. Ah, shit, I can't think of his name in Honey, We Shrunk the Kids, but
he was great in that.
As the annoying dad.
Yeah, he was great in that. He did like, oh, what was it called? Sci Factor, Sci Chronicles, something like that. It ran for 3 years. That was really good. I remember him from this little show that nobody probably remembers. If you remember Dead Man's Gun, I know he was in that. I know he voiced characters in Batman the Animated Series, like one. He's in like one episode. He's if you look at his filmography, it's like, hey, wait a minute. He's been in a lot of things, including, like, say, Star Trek. Star Trek: The Next Generation, not the original show.
Yeah, I was gonna say he was just little for that one. I don't know. He is truly a joy of the screen. I love him, and I mean I knew he was Max Headroom, but
Right.
I think growing up more he was like that trash can to me character. That's where I'm more associated with him, and seeing him in different things. Because again, I didn't get to see this until last week. It was one of those things where my parents just stopped me, and I just gave up giving a shit after that. And then how long was it before this DVD came out? So I mean, it was gone for a good long time. And as to why people haven't researched it, rebooted it, whatever, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't know if it was because they associate it more with Coke commercials, or if they just forget that there's an actual cast of characters behind this. I don't know,
Right.
but it deserved more than what it got. And it's got things like eugenics in there, like you were saying. It's got things like media making the news in order to report it, starting wars. They have things like advertisements being bad for the viewers, and
Subliminal messages in the ads and things like that.
yeah, and studios knowing that they're getting viewers killed, but doing it anyway because it's going to cause a profit. It was really smart because all that shit was so fucking abundant in the 80s.
I know, right?
This shows almost a critique of what our society was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see something like this getting remade today, and not because of its topic material or subject material. I think it's just the plot line would not get past a focus group.
Fuck
I
focus
just
groups. Give me my goddamn sci-fi.
oh, I agree.
I know.
I agree, but it's like they don't get cyberpunk, they don't get steampunk, they don't get old. Like shit, very few scenes of this show are filmed outside. Most of it are in the very small and darkened set, and it's still fun. Studios don't really like shit like that anymore. So I mean, I don't know. Studios wouldn't like something like this, which is too bad because it's very story oriented.
Well, I think the bad thing about it is it's a 20th Century Fox rights owned, so now Disney owns it. So
Ah,
therefore, it's probably going to stand under lock and key at this
mm.
point. That's unfortunate to it, but you never know. Something might change later on. It's funny you talk about all those themes, and I looked over at my notes and I saw like the resurrection episode with the televangelists.
That
With
was
Dad and the
dope.
ex-girlfriend. And I'm just like, holy shit, this is great.
That was creepy though. Like people seeing images of their lost or loved ones or what have you. It's like,
Well, and the one lady's ex or dead husband who kept just saying the same thing. That's great. Yeah. Over and over and over again. And I just was like howling at the end. I'm like, this is not supposed to be funny, but I was finding it completely hilarious.
that moment for me came from Murray, I think, in the next episode where they had the Au Vat, and Edison's trying to tell Murray, "Hey, I've got the story here. Let's roll with this." And Murray's trying to tell him, "No, I told you to drop that. You need to cover this, this, and this." So Edison tricks him by saying basically they kidnapped this child. Wait, there's a child been kidnapped? Go get on that. Everyone loves missing kids, not realizing
Yeah.
that the mom was sitting right there.
Yeah. Because Edison tells him, like, she's sitting right here. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. She
Oh,
was not like a total wreck. That's one of those 80s style acting moments. It was like that's totally a product of its time, because if you had that like these days, that lady looked like a complete miserable wreck. Red eyes, flattened hair, gnarly hair, like clothes. She hasn't changed in like 2 days since it happened. Yeah.
it's just shit like this. It was the little things like that just cracked me right the hell up.
Yeah. Well, my favorite
And
was probably the sensor mechanic in like the second to last episode.
the mechanic, which one was he?
Oh no,
The the skin the skinny guy?
the sensor plot device where the sensors of
Oh,
the network were like bleeping this
yes.
out and everybody was getting like dinged and feeds were getting cut out. I'm like, Boy, that's pretty topical.
Yes, it is, and I don't know if they did that in response to the actual occurrence that happened with the channel hijacking, or if the channel hijacking came after that.
Oh,
But it was very close in hand of kind of how that situation was handled.
yeah. Well, I liked it when Edison was reading the list of, I guess I've said hell like 9 times. I've said damn 3 times. I've accused 3 separate executive producers of being this. I've sexually innuendoed 5 other people. And it's like, this is great.
And that was the real stuff that actually happened, not the stuff that the censors were trying to get him closed down for.
I was like, this is oddly specific. Unless somebody was doing like a detailed watch on all the episodes, I wonder how much of this happened behind the scenes.
And
Fuck off.
I wish the gentleman that said that I was a sexist pig or what have you for not liking She-Hulk. If you're listening, I just want you to know again that the ending to She-Hulk is not that fucking original, because this has a machine that basically tells you what you can and cannot do and what's going to happen and what's not going to happen. It controls all the plots.
That was the censor machine. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not Kevin. It's the censor machine. So again, it's not that I'm a fucking sexist asshole. I've just seen things that, it's not that original.
You're our own Kevin.
Yeah. Except for I don't get a cool hat.
Yeah, and you are not responsible for the downturn of Marvel movies recently. Anyway, shifting gears back to
Wait, nope, we can tie that in. Max Headroom is our generation's Deadpool. Very much true. So.
He even got to appear in his own TV show called Whack-Its.
Yes, the Whack-Its.
That was fucking great. I'm like, who cares about this show? It's horrible. Yet the ratings are awesome. All I had was a flashback to Survivor the first time I ever saw that show in reality TV. Like, oh God, here we go.
I want to say I recognized it as the death of sitcoms then and there.
Yeah.
Lordy, I didn't realize it was going to last this long. I fucking hate reality TV.
What? You didn't also like Porky's Landing in this show?
No, you know what killed me though is the fact that the fucking justice system is now a game show.
I know. For a minute, I thought they were going to bring out Monty Hall and do a spin the wheel and make the deal.
Oh my God! Or fucking what's his name? Richard Dawson. Who loves you and who do you love?
That would have been so fucking funny if they had brought one of those guys out as a cameo. Even fucking Alex Trebek doing like a Jeopardy. Your life is on the line.
Oh shit. Or
the Daily Double pops up and it's called the quadruple life sentence.
Mark Summers, instead of doing Double Dare, have some kids like foraging or fighting each other for food. I don't know.
Oh, Double Dare. Oh man, this is total nostalgia run right now.
Sorry, I love Mark Summers. He's great.
He was very awesome.
He still is. He did the he was the announcer for the Double Dare reboot series that they did. Which was still kind of entertaining. Yeah.
Good.
Not that I'm in my 40s and still watching 80s episodes of Double Dare, but still, I liked it.
I watch freaking Married with Children like all the time. Oh my God. Yeah, canceled. Thank you. You're welcome. Oh, ma'am.
Oh God. And this quote, I had to highlight it.
Oh, you got quotes. I better look for mine.
This embodied the 80s for me, and basically what happened from the 80s on, where the chairman of Channel 23 goes, credit fraud. My God, man, that's worse than murder.
Oh my God, right? I had to double take on that. I had to rewind that and be like, wait, did I just hear that right? Credit fraud is worse than murder.
And you want to say, oh gosh, this is in the future. That sounds terrible. That's how our justice system treats like financial crimes now. Like you can kill somebody and get out much sooner than you could like steal a bunch of people's fucking money like Bernie Madoff did and never see the fucking sun again.
You're right. Hey, they wanted to make sure people had money in the future so they could spend it on other shit. If you, which when paying close attention to this show, every time there was a TV on screen, it was always on. And they actually made that a point in the show of if you have a TV with an off switch, that's actually illegal.
Interesting. I did not catch that one.
Only the networks can turn the TVs off. TVs have to be on all the time otherwise. I
Well,
know
yeah.
I would probably kill myself at that point. I couldn't have a TV on that much.
Just hang out with my kids.
I mean, you probably get used to it and tune it out to sleep. I mean, I sleep with a fan on, so I have like my noise that puts me to sleep. But
I have Alexa right next to my head doing thunderstorm sounds, which is nice for me.
so that's what you call your wife. Gotcha. No, I'm
That's what
kidding.
that's what she calls my fucking snoring. And she recorded it once to like prove it because I kept going, fuck you, I'm not my mother. Yeah, I am.
That's funny.
For a little guy, I make loud noises. Like if you ever want to like scare somebody off, just like play a tape recording of me sleeping.
Right. Oh,
There's
yeah.
a monster in there.
That's true. Anyway, we were talking quotes. The one I wrote down is Edison when he was saying, "Since when has news been entertainment?" And Max replied, or I think it was Murray replied, "Since it was invented." I'm like, boy, some things never change.
Oh, and
Yeah, it was Murray. I'm pretty sure of that now.
I think so. And Amanda Pays, I didn't realize this.
She was great. Oh,
Yes, I love her. She was probably my first crush. Um from Flash, I always
yeah, I was
loved
gonna
her.
say it has to be from Flash.
Yeah, so when I found out that she was in this, I was like, "Yay, double hooray." She was amazing, but she took typing lessons in order to like really sell the character of Theora.
Well, they had like legit like typewriter keyboards going on. Like nowadays, that's like the cool steampunk look thing that people like. But back then, that was legit
Well,
typewriters.
yeah, this was a time before computers actually had a purpose.
Yeah, right.
They had fucking, what was it, a big ass like 7-inch wide fucking floppy disk.
Yeah, they actually had a tiny one and a large one throughout the seasons.
Yes, but the large ones, they were bigger than the other large ones, weren't they? They were like, I remember there
I
was
want to,
two sizes when we were kids. There was a 3.5 and 5 point something.
yeah, but the other one would look more like a 8 or 9 inch one actually, because
Oh,
it was
okay, yeah,
giant. It was a big one.
yeah, like maybe the third of the side of a laser disc or some shit. It was pretty big.
Yeah, I want to say it was, for example,
Yeah,
the
actually, yeah.
I got a NECA toy figure box for our audio listeners, and it was about 2/3 the size basically. So like that big, yeah, probably about, that might be 5 or 6 inch, but it was like a giant square. The floppy disks were even smaller. Those were like maybe like 2 inches by 2 inches.
Oh, well, I mean, it was neat because yeah, they must have been on a very minimal budget, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Because again, yeah, they were using just the keys basically or the buttons from typewriters.
Yep.
Very few scenes had actual like keyboards in them.
Yes.
And when Theora and Bryce are typing, it's like worse than watching two Robins from Batman 66 try to type together. It's like dueling banjos, but with a keyboard.
It reminded me of junior high with typing class on a keyboard or a typewriter, and we're all looking at each other like, man, this fucking sucks.
Yes, kind of, but it's like they were like really racing one another, like really trying to get that fucking 60 words per minute deal.
Oh my god, yeah.
But it's like, you could tell they just really weren't typing anything. Like,
Yeah.
What
Just
are
make
you
it
guys
sound
doing?
like you're typing quickly.
Yeah, because they're sitting there like watching some scanner or whatever, and they're typing as they're watching it. Like, what does that do?
Because if I try and do that now in the middle of our show, I'm probably going to close like all of our windows and kill our record session. I am not doing
Probably.
that as a fun little thing.
God
Click, click,
damn
click,
it.
click, click, click. No interruption of this signal for this podcast.
Yeah, no, that would no. We don't need blanks.
But
pretty
if we
much-
had Reg working with us, that'd be okay.
I'm glad you brought up Reg.
Love Reg. I've seen him in like 300 things.
Yes, William Morgan Shepherd. Wonderful actor.
W. Morgan Shepherd, as he was dubbed in the second half of the show.
Yes. Was probably the most prestigious person that they had on the show.
Yeah.
But they sold him not so much as a British character, but more as an Australian character.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. Hi, hi, hi.
Yeah. And it really started like bringing Jacko back to my fucking memory and shit from the Road Warrior. And I'm just like, what was America's fucking obsession with roided out fucking Australian dudes between 87 and 90? Like, I don't get it.
No.
Crocodile Dundee. The first Crocodile Dundee wasn't good enough to warrant a second one, let alone a third. But it's like why the whole big weird Australian obsession in the 80s? It's just it's weird. I don't get it.
I don't know. Got me on that one. But speaking of like cast members, like, I know we mentioned Jeffrey Tambor earlier, but man, young Jeffrey Tambor was a killer in this show as well. Like, we're not kidding when we say the acting is top notch. It is not this hokey show like when we did War of the Worlds, and we're like, what the hell are we watching and trying to struggle and get through? The acting was on point in this show. There was nobody, not the secondary characters, not the guest cast. And we had some great casting done. I was talking with Kevin earlier about like Andreas Katsoulis, who a lot of Babylon 5 guys, is Jakar. Just saying. And he's also the armless guy from The Fugitive with Harrison Ford. He's done quite a few other things. He was like the second-hand man to God, what was that rap bastard's name at Channel 66 who Goodsend?
Grossberg?
Oh, Grossberg. Goodsend. Yeah, he was the second-hand man to Grossberg, and like just seeing him, I'm like, oh, hell yeah. And even though I was mistaken that John Malkovich was in here, it was actually a Peter Krause or Cross. Very much looked like a young John Malkovich. So I was completely confused until I saw the name of the credits, and I'm like, okay. But great casting all around, and Tambor was great as Murray. Loved him.
I love him so much. Like he's another person like Matt Frewer that's never been in a bad movie that he's. Well, I don't know if he's ever been in a bad movie that I haven't liked, but he's never given a bad performance. No. He's just top notch. Another person that's just the gem of whatever project he's in. And I think you mentioned it already. The episode where was it the Censors where they were trying to kidnap the woman and they had the little girl at the station?
Yeah, that was that episode, yes.
Yeah. And it was funny because Edison is so used to, like Kolchak, lying and swindling to get the truth.
Right.
But Murray just says, hey, we need to find this woman. We have her child. We don't want anything. We just want to give her child back. Yeah. And the guy's like, yeah, okay, hold on. And he walks away. And Edison's like, you used the truth and that really worked. Wow.
Yeah, he's like, I got a trick here and there. Maybe if you stick around long enough, I'll show you another trick. And I'm like, boy, the rapport between those two really got good.
And yeah, I mean, I had to write that down like, oh my God, that is so Kolchak and Tony. Like, one's a lying son of a bitch to get the fucking truth. And the other one gets what he wants by telling the truth. So I'm like, whatever.
Well, I like that Murray, is one of those guys that worked his way up the ladder. So he's done all of these roles to get to that producer role. And, just going back to that episode with Patty, with when they finally got in doubt, Edison got the job and like he had earned the story. He cracked a big story. He had like the edge that, his friend Patty didn't have. He didn't have like the killer instinct to go for it, just to go for it. And just finally getting some background on Edison beyond like, oh, he's this star reporter. Oh no, we got to actually hear and see a little bit of his past without actually jumping into a giant flashback episode with a young dude that doesn't even look like him. Like, that's a clever way to do a flashback without doing a flashback. You just talk about it in an exposition scene. You don't have to recast. You don't have to jump to different scenes, different places, trying to make the city look beautiful. You're shooting in fucking LA anyway. So what are you doing? But, that's just my thought.
Speaking of exposition, there wasn't a whole lot that they repeated in this series. Like,
No.
nothing, like, they don't tell you more than once or twice at best what Max Headroom is. Like, they just basically tell you and then go along with it. They didn't feel that the audience was stupid enough that they had to keep re-explaining it.
Well, it's re-explained in the opening credits every time. So if you're watching it live on like TV, you can't really skip that anyway. And that's how we all largely watched TV back in the days. There was no binge model. It was a weekly release, and you had to sit through every single solitary second, including the commercials. There was no fast forward button unless you hit the VCR, you hit record, and you watch it another time, just like a DVR does it these days. But, when appointment TV was a thing back then, it's not so much now. But
did you just call it appointment TV?
Yeah, people don't do appointment TV much anymore unless it's a sporting event.
I did not realize that's what it was called.
Yeah, appointment TV. That's before home video, before everything. TV was appointment TV.
Huh?
It's where, because even I'll admit to this. I always had appointment TV with wrestling Monday nights. I would make sure that I was not doing anything else. I would actually turn the phone off every Monday night. I would not answer anything. Computer wouldn't be on. Nothing would be on. It was like that for the longest time. Probably not until I want to say 2005 or 6 when I stopped doing that. But for the longest time, nobody bothered me on a Monday night, period. I didn't care what was going on. Phone got unplugged. Nothing bothered me. That was appointment TV for me. So some people would probably do like, say, Star Trek or just, the nightly news. Nobody's going to bother me for this half hour. This is 10 o'clock every night. This is my last thing I watch before bed. Unplug the phone. Nobody bothers me. Don't interrupt me. Not moving. Hey, Married with Children, Al Bundy. What's the one show he never let stop him from watching? Who's that man running off into the sun? Who lost his wife but killed his son, or who loved his son but killed his wife. Psycho Dad, Psycho Dad. His appointment TV was Psycho Dad and probably football.
Oh, God. What was the fucking horse's name that he wanted to get buried next to?
Oh, God.
I don't remember. I think it was Psycho Dad's horse. And he wanted to buy the plot of dirt next to him.
Oh my God, I need to start that up on a rewatch now.
Yeah, I would. I've been meaning to do it.
Yeah.
I can't bitch. I should in a way because I don't have a free time much anymore. But it's like, this is again another show that I didn't mind not doing anything else. It was a good way to follow up Hannibal because I was still just as entertained.
Yeah.
There was not really any multitasking during this watch. Once I got to season 2, my notes went from like 20 pages to 5 pages at most.
Yeah, I had more for the first beginning of the show than I did in the last half.
Yeah. And I mean, there were certain things that I'd written down that was like, well, maybe, okay, we'll bring that up. Is it worth it? I don't know. Like, there is a little bit of racism.
Oh, yes, there is. Very early on, they made a Chinese joke, and I'm like, oh, that's not happening today.
Yeah, no, the Japanese characters also were very
Japanese.
No, that's also true. But they were very stereotypical in their portrayal. Like, they basically they were one step away from calling them blue suits, which is a horrible slur. They could have done better with that group, the Zigzag team. And then the only black character on the show is a taxi cab driver, and they don't have cars in this time. So he's taking one of those old Japanese taxis where he's pulling them along on a wheelbarrow, basically prancing like a horse. And I'm like, no, what the fuck oh, God.
Yep. But that was the thing.
Why did they do that? That's like the worst fucking thing I've ever seen.
I don't know what to tell you. Some things, like we've said, some things in this show do not age well at all.
No, and like there's quite a bit of sexism in this, like towards
Yep.
Amanda Pays.
Oh my
Who
God, from
again,
Murray, from Edison, from Bryce, from just about everybody there. I'm like,
and then
man, I'm surprised that girl don't shoot everybody up.
kinda like everybody be touching on her and like fucking what's the word I'm thinking of? Not berating or being derogatory. I mean, yes, they were, but basically treating her like she's very naive. She was
Oh,
not. She
the
was,
mansplaining.
yes, it was kind of hard to
Yeah.
watch, especially considering the only other show I've seen her in, she's like the most brilliant mind on the show. So it's like, I don't really want to see her being talked down to.
Well, yeah, there's one time I was watching and I'm like, well, it was when Edison got very jealous of her answering the phone with another guy in her bed. And I'm
Yeah,
like, that's not your fucking problem, bro. And that
kinda.
was the point of the episode, is at the end, he's like, it's none of my business, but like I'm watching this with like modern sensibility in my eyes watching. I'm like, dude, no, you're in the wrong. What the fuck are you doing? She doesn't need to be apologizing to you for shit. She just feels bad because maybe she does have feelings for you, but that's beside the point. You're making a bigger deal out of this than she was. And now she's making a big deal out of it in response to you making a big deal out of it.
Yeah, because I mean, definitely he was the one that was making work.
He was creating the situation. She was not.
Yeah, she was doing her own thing, for lack of a better term, at home.
Oh, she was doing something, all right. But it was none of his business what she was doing and to whom.
As long as it wasn't fucking Bryce or Grossberg, it really didn't matter. But
Well, and there was flirting with Murray at times too. And I'm like, oh my God.
what they just didn't know what direction the show was going to go in that time and point.
I
But
think
they
they just
did
left
make,
that playful.
and again, that's fine. That's fine. A lot of it, and a lot of the banter between the three of those characters was playful.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be flirty between Edison and Theora, but you didn't really get to see that well until the end of the second season.
Right.
Where they made things incredibly awkward and weird was the last episode where Bryce is going to jump ship to Channel 66 for
Oh,
Grossberg.
I see where you're going.
And you think that he's going to get information from Channel 66 and rush back to Channel 23 and exploit what they're doing. That
You're
was
like,
not
did
the
you see what
case.
these motherfuckers are doing? Yeah, no.
Yeah. He was being groomed, and I mean that in the most literal fucking sense that you could consider it,
And it
by
was just as
Grossberg.
creepy visually to see this too. Just saying.
Yeah, he's giving a minor alcohol, telling him to take off his clothes and come swimming with him. The water's just fine. I'm like, wait a second. This sounds like an afternoon special. Next thing you know, they're both wearing silk kimonos like fucking Chris Christopherson would have an open shirt. He ain't got no fucking body hair on his chest, and they're all drinking champagne. And he's acting like he's the most baller bitch in the world, but it's like, you're about to get fucked in the ass by a grown man. He's not intending to fucking woo you.
I see what they were trying to do. I just think they chose not the best direction to do it in. Like you didn't need the swimming part. You didn't need a lot of the other stuff. You could have just kept it simple. It
It
made it a little
was,
more convoluted than it needed to be.
let's just call it for what it is. It was if like Kevin Spacey and Bryan Singer had a love child, that would be Grossberg. Like
They wanted
that
to
was
make him
what...
the creep fucker, but man alive. That was, yeah, I was watching that episode going, oh, I don't know about this one.
and
That's
yeah,
the only episode I felt a little, ooh, God. The best one to end on. If they had followed this up with a Christmas special, I might have cried.
it wasn't okay. It was so very much like creepy child molester type shit. Oh, it was so gross. And again, was sexual harassment because he was trying to woo him for a position or to give him a position other than doggy style. Edison comes in to break up the whole shebang, grabs Bryce by the fucking collar like he's carrying him like a cat, and then
Yeah, by the
leaves.
scruff, yeah.
Yeah, and then leaves with no ramifications to Bryce whatsoever.
Well, that we know of.
Yeah,
Because
and
it pretty
again,
much ends not too long thereafter, and that's the end of the show.
yeah. So I mean that didn't work out well for Bryce or his character. They could have left him off a little bit better than that as far as having a legacy of that character goes.
My guess is they were probably not expecting to get canceled at the time. There might have been another they might have been building towards a payoff. I do agree with you. That was not a very good look for that episode. Like I said, they could have chosen a different direction to do the same plot device, but I mean, I don't think they really intended it for it to come off like that creepy. We're looking back at it with like modern eyes now, but even back then, that's still not a very good look at all. So there's no excuse there. Like what happened? It's not good. But they could have done it a little differently, and they could have gotten the same point across. But for Bryce's ramifications, I'm willing to bet there would have been some callbacks to be like, you remember that time when you're trying to go back to Grossberg, and he says like, yeah, that was not my best decision. I have a lot of growing up to do, because there were character moments for him where he did stupid things, like when he was trying to protect his buddies at the academy
Madison
that he
Institute.
came from and he was working with. There was some growth for him too, because he's still a kid.
Sure.
So, but what I liked was, I actually kind of liked Bryce for the most part until that last episode. And I'm like, where'd this fucking come from? There's been like no hints of this forever. And all of a sudden he might hook back up with Grossberg as a team or whatever was intended. But I actually really started to like him after a couple episodes. I'm like, they're not playing him like they would treat a normal stupid kid on a TV show, aka Wesley Crusher on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
They made Bryce out to be more like he was on the spectrum with social disabilities, not knowing how to socialize because he's so smart, basically.
Right.
And they tried doing that with the other kids at that institute, and the actor did a really good job of portraying that. But that's not what being on the spectrum really is. They were trying to make it more like savants or idiot savants, if that
prodigies
call that.
Yeah.
Yes. And what it really was eugenics, them not understanding certain social disabilities and mixing it with what eugenics is and a little bit of Brave New World. And it was kind of like, it was gross, but it was relevant. And I think that's kind of what we were talking about. Yeah, what we were talking about forever prior, where the storylines are still relevant, especially today, because we do have media that fakes the news. We do have corporations that are in charge of our media. Look at fucking the asshole that fucking just bought Twitter because he could. Fucking Musk wants to fucking show how big he thinks his fucking dick is, or to stop the people fucking making fun of him for being a dipshit, nerd, what have you. So he buys fucking social media and controls the fucking information that way. That's fucking terrifying. And that's the kind of shit that Edison was fighting in this series. So It's very much fucking relevant today.
Yeah, there's messages throughout the whole show. Hey, what are you fanning yourself for over there? Are you getting all hot and bothered talking about Edison?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to jump down off this fucking soapbox before I hyperventilate.
Well, maybe we should get you one of those Nero bracelets that Zimzam, or what was it, Zigzag was selling for people.
Because they can't say zigzag. Someone else already owns that fucking.
Yeah. Freaking.
I don't know. Some of their products were kind of cool, like the Blipverts and even the Wackets.
Yep.
Was it Wacket? Yeah, Wackets.
No, Wackets was the that was from those two idiots. That was the Bill Maher episode where he was one of the idiots that created the code to put inside of the Wackets.
Yes.
And then they were trying to sell the show to everybody. Boy, the way my one comment out of that episode was when Grossberg was having dinner with Dominique, and I just went, "Whoa, Dominique," in that dress. Wow.
You know, I saw Bill Maher and went, "Oh man, I didn't know you could show assholes on TV. That's fucked up. It's gross."
They still do.
Unfortunately, so.
You know, back
If
then
anyone
he
wants
did
to
do
write
some
in and
like
tell me that I'm
normal
an asshole,
acting. What's that?
oh, I was going to say, if anyone wants to write in and tell me that I'm an asshole for not liking Bill Maher, turn the shit off.
I was gonna say
Okay,
he
so
was doing roles at the time for a few years in like normal shows and whatnot. So he was still a working actor at that point. I don't hate on him too much for that period of time, but from when he started doing his soapboxy show, I'm not a fan.
with all of his little hot takes, we'll just call it that.
I just don't watch him. I don't badmouth it. I don't care.
I
I'm not wasting
badmouth
my energy on
Stanley.
that prick. So
Yes, I'll be polite now.
yep,
He did not ruin that episode for me because he was not in
no.
it enough.
And he played a
Uh,
douchebag, which is himself. So
yes, it was very much the same character that he was playing in House 2, which I
yep.
love, just not him in it.
And he was only in that one for all of like 5 minutes.
Yes. Trying to get what's her name on a Madonna video.
Yeah, at least he wasn't. At least they didn't cast him as Grossberg, and he's trying to hook up with her.
Ugh, 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 gross. I just don't
Okay, I'll
like
take
him.
that image out of your mind now. I loved Grossberg as a bad guy in this show. I thought that was fantastic,
Yes.
especially when he took over Channel 66. Because I did not remember that episode as I'm watching this one back. I'm like, what the fuck is he playing at? And at the very end, it's like, oh motherfucker. He was setting everybody up just to take over Channel 66, not to get back at Channel 23. I'm like, oh, that's good.
Yeah, he was fucking
I
smart
didn't
and
remember that
cutthroat.
shit at all, so I actually was surprised by that.
I didn't. I mean, obviously, but fucking, it was nice to see because he was a good bad guy, and it was a good move to put him in a recurring position.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you can't make Channel 23 the bad guy in every episode. At some point, you're gonna have to say, why are they still working for them? So yes,
Yeah.
having that competition was the smartest thing to do, and he was probably the most standout character up until the point that they brought him back. Like there was no other bad guys that really stood out like he did.
Well, they weren't ready to set up Zigzag as, a bad in here. They were annoying as a corporate sponsor, but they hadn't like gone to the lengths that they started to go to towards the end of season 2. But then
Well,
they also started to introduce the World Broadcasting Body, which the second they started talking about that, I'm like, oh, we're getting corporate sponsors, and now we're getting the world governing body of the broadcasters mentioned and starting. It's like, oh, we're going bigger and badder here. So we might have ended up getting some really cool ass stories going forward after that.
oh sure, because I mean, just that the episode with the censors. You want to talk about the FCC being a bunch of pricks? You could do a bajillion stories about that shit.
Yep.
Maybe not quite a bajillion, just one under, but a lot of stories.
Yeah.
Because, well, I mean, shit like that really is relevant. Where they talk about basically, oh God, what was the quote? If you don't teach them to read, you could, yeah. Max says if you don't teach them to read, you could roll them whenever you like. So it's like basically, flat out says the studios want you to be stupid. They want you to not be able to read. They want you to get information not independently, but from what they tell you.
And to buy with what money you do have, pay our sponsors so we can keep this machine rolling.
Yes. And the great part about Zigzag fucking buying 66 or having 66 for a moment. Sorry,
Channel 23.
That's right. It was 23 and they fucked up because they couldn't sell ad time to any other fucking corporation or any other station because it would have been competition for them.
Right.
So, nobody wanted to help them get bigger, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, they didn't think that plan far enough ahead.
It made me kind of go, oh, that sucks for you.
But then they say at the end, for now.
Yeah, for now.
And
Some of the Zigzag actors are probably the better of the cameos that came across the show. Like they'd go on to do things like, oh Christ, the movie with Wesley Snipes and Sean Connery.
No.
Michael Crichton movie, Rising Sun. Yes. Ah,
Oh, okay.
a lot of them were in Rising Sun. One of them plays the guy that accidentally kills the girl or chokes her out, and just some other really prestigious actors. But at that point, they just had them playing Japanese caricatures, and it was really upsetting to see because you know that these gentlemen have way more fucking integrity than that, and the ladies as well. And unfortunately, Hollywood just makes this machine that if you don't fucking do what they tell you to do, you're just not going to get fucking hired. So you have to fucking do humiliating shit in order to get good roles.
Right.
And they even show that on this show as they're doing it in real time. Sorry.
I'll cut that part out.
Oh, dude, you're fine for it. Besides, I think I'm at the end of my notes anyway. Wait.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you have anything else before we get into some social media?
Just that national security may have been the reason that the show got canceled. Pushing down
Lawrence
to Friday.
Movie? God damn it, Martin.
Martin Lawrence. No, it was the hijacking of the Chicago TV station.
Yeah.
That whoever did it was wearing a Max Headroom mask and a fake Max Headroom background to them. Hijacked the TV broadcast twice, and they said that the person's never been found. They never knew who did it. That's fucking stupid, and that doesn't happen. They know who did it, and they're now working for the fucking government. That's how that works. Mega hackers don't go to prison. They go to the government. And if they don't fucking go to the government, they get killed or put into prison. That's how things like that work.
Yeah, they never get access to another computer piece of technology ever again.
Ever. And yeah, so if this person figured out a way to hijack radio waves or television waves, he now works for the FCC. That's just how that
has
is.
Been for the last like 30 years, 40 years.
Yeah. So what's fucked up is we could say now after war games, Reagan had his shit together as far as hacking and stuff like that goes. They knew that it was a danger. So,
yep.
So anyway, enough of that. I promised I would mention that. And since it is really interesting, I figured why the hell not? But a bunch of social media.
Yeah, bring it, buddy.
Basically, what it comes down to is people love Max Headroom. All right. First, we've got our buddy Marty Catola. Marty says Max was the 80s for me. Watched it on ABC every week. Even if the 12-year-old in me didn't understand it completely, I even remember the impersonator who broke through the news broadcast. It was absolutely hilarious. And that's what we were just talking about. Yeah, it was, even though it freaked a bunch of people out. But well, I don't know, because I mean, the 80s was a weird time. Like, you could still get away with shit and have people believe that it was fake. Like, for the longest time, people thought that the Challenger was fake.
Oh God, like, I remember that.
Yeah. So I mean, anyway, yeah. Having somebody that looks like this TV character hop on TV and do exactly what the TV character does, I'm sure was fucking delightful as a kid. That'd just be like somebody coming up with a proton pack and catching a ghost.
Yeah.
All right. Next, we've got from Skeeter. I watched it when it first aired. I was hooked on it. The thing I remember the most about it was that my mother hated it and said it was stupid and pointless. So I loved it.
Yep.
That's pretty much what happened with me, except for I never got to go back and love it. Like, they just didn't have it on VHS.
Fuckers.
Well, they did, but you'd have to find like an old mom and pop shop because they only made so many of those. And if they weren't big sellers, rental store is not going to carry it. So, and then I was talking with Norman Renner about it too. And he says it was hardcore. He says, like, in regards to the channel hijack, you can't mess with the feds and the broadcasting rules and regulations and not really expect to not get in trouble. Like, it truly is their propaganda machine. And if someone interrupts that or threatens it, stations are going to get fucked up. FCC will get angry and fucked up. Like, it is all a business in a machine. So he's right. And next we've got Stephen Fodor. Said, long story, but I wanted to be Edison Carter. And I have video.
Steve, you need to send that in, buddy.
Yes, we need to hold you to that. And we want to see that video. And if nothing else, we'll make new video for you. Like, we want to see Fodes doing Max Headroom.
Had we known, Steve, could have had you on this one, buddy. Just
That's
saying.
true.
But stay tuned. If you're listening to this, buddy, send us a message.
Yeah, because we'll plant that all over the internet. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And next we've got Jen Peters, who said, I watched it as a preteen. I happily purchased the DVDs when they were finally available, and I watched the entire series again. I definitely have a soft spot in my heart for this show.
Yay, Jen.
And I think that's worth mentioning again that Shout Factory did an amazing job with this DVD set. There aren't any special features on it. That's an unfortunate thing. That's actually very rare for Shout Factory, but the quality of the transfer was pretty damn good considering what it came from.
How much did you pay for yours? Because my copy's a few years old, actually, so I don't remember how much I paid for it.
20 or 30. I don't remember which.
Okay.
Might have been 30. But again, and this is one of those times where it's like an old canceled TV series. If you've not seen it before, you're not really sure that you want to spend that kind of money on it. But I just had this hunch in my heart that despite I thought that with War of the Worlds, that this was going to be just like Tremors, the series. And it was. I enjoyed it very much and have zero regrets purchasing it. And we'll end up watching it again someday, unlike War of the Worlds, which we were talking about the intro and how you said that they basically had the plot line for the first minute in every episode. That first minute was all scenes taken from the pilot episode. And that 1 minute had more action, better acting, and better editing than the entire 2 seasons of War of the Worlds. No fucking joke.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, I did look that up real quick. Max Headroom is $29.99 on Amazon. You can, if you're more for the digital though, Prime does have both seasons. You can get those as well digitally through the Prime Video. So you can go do that. They're not insanely priced that way either.
Oh, that nice. I was going to ask if they were cheaper digital.
Per episode, they're $1.99 per season. It's $10 for the first season, which is 6 episodes, and second season is $15 for the next 8.
That's
so
not really
for
that bad.
$25, if you want digital copies, it's probably the way to go. You're going to get the Scream Factory transfers for those, so they'll be just fine. But if you want physical media DVD, $29.99, $30. You can get some used copies for less, but if you want brand new, that's the way to go.
Yeah, and I did. Although my kid fucking took the disc case when I was watching the first disc, went in the other room and started fucking around with discs 2 and 3 like she was a DJ spinning records and shit.
Oh my god.
She's still alive, but she, I was so pissed. I haven't even watched it yet.
Well, funny, real quick aside on that is my copy I got a couple of years ago. When I got this, it sounded like there's a floater. Physical media people, you know what a floater is. You hear a disc rolling around in there. So for the longest time, I never opened this. I kept it very squished on the side so it wouldn't move around. And I finally opened it up. I put the discs in a new case. Thankfully, it wasn't actually a true floater. It was the center hub had broken off of the spine. And so the trays themselves were rolling back and forth. It wasn't a disc. I was mistaken with that. But I still put this in a, audio people, you're not going to see this. Video people will, maybe you'll see this, maybe you won't. But I have a brand new 4-disc case and I just put the discs one on each side. So it's a little more user friendly this way. I wish Scream would have done that, but that just reminded me I had a pretty dinged up case too.
I hate box sets where they have those plastic hinges. The bigger that they are, the more broken they usually arrive.
I know, right?
There are so many better ways to store those DVDs other than fucking them up with plastic that doesn't stick.
Yeah.
That's a whole other soapbox, and I'm not even going to go there right now, but I truly hate that.
We'll get on that another.
All right. And then we've got Jonathan Hamill, who says, Max Headroom was one of my favorite shows back in the day. Absolutely loved it. I wish I could have seen it more often. I got to watch Beauty and the Beast more than I got to see this fucking show. And I didn't like Beauty and the Beast. And then Rick Groff says, yes, I saw it when it originally aired. So bummed when it was canceled. Very ahead of its time. I'm going to have to agree. I mean, one of the things that you first see that is basically now is reporters without photographers having to shoot their own fucking media coverage and whatnot. Like,
You're right.
he had to do it with the big ass bulky fucking camcorder. They just do it with their phone now.
Yeah.
This one back when reporters were reporters, they wanted that story.
Get that
All
story.
right. Next is Samantha Drennan, who said, "Yes, I watched it in its original run. It was so cool, and again, extremely ahead of its time. I love, everyone. There's multiple people who've
Everybody
been
says
saying,
that. Mm.
yeah, and they're not wrong. It's very
No,
meta,
no.
and just the fact that it's making fun of itself, that it's self-aware. Like nobody was really used to that sort of thing outside of like a Mel Brooks type movie."
Right.
And let's see here. Xander Lovecraft says, "My one true memory is watching the movie in the film appreciation class back in high school." We didn't have film appreciation in high school. I'm totally jealous.
I wish.
No, we had drama club. I was in that, but no, did not have film appreciation. I would have actually liked to have studied film.
Right.
Probably would have
I had
gotten
it
more
in
books.
college, but not high school.
Oh, no, see, I went to Sonoma State. They didn't have any fun courses.
Okay.
No, they had paleontology. I took that. I'd get
And
high and
professional
go to
weed
dinosaur
smoking,
class.
right?
Yes, I would get stoned as a motherfucker and go to dinosaur class.
There you go.
I'm not joking. Oh, all right. And then Bob Thayer says, "I used to watch it when it was on. I did not know it came out on disc." Yes, Bob, if you're listening again, it is on Shout Factory. Definitely check it out, and it's also on Amazon. So depending upon how much you want to pay for shipping,
Right.
if you buy anything over $50 at Shout, it's free shipping. Depending upon who you're getting it through with Amazon, that may or may not be the case.
Yeah, watch for that Prime logo. If it doesn't have the Prime logo, you're going to pay for shipping.
Yeah, and even if you do, sometimes they're
Yeah,
getting
that's kind of just pay attention. That's all.
And then Nathan Bashore says he was a vision of the future that we might get. Still not sure if we did or not. Max Headroom works better as an antagonist, like he was in the talk show. I remember watching his TV series and wondering why they gave him so little of him. I think they wanted him to be more of an accent to the show, like in the background. I know I've shit on Todd McFarlane a lot when he's been saying that for the last 20 years, that's what he wants to make, is a Sam and Twitch type movie that has Spawn in the background. Like, it's not about him, but he's there in the background doing shit. And it doesn't sound very interesting in that regard, but that did work better here. Like, less was actually more.
Yeah, they could have overplayed it.
Yes, and had it be very campy. And Max is cute, and I think that's why this didn't come off as campy.
Agreed.
And a lack of fucking cartoon noises.
Well, I liked it when he got pretty serious, like when he had when Edison had the bracelet on and they had to snap him out of his spending spree and being locked in his fantasy world and his Ferrari and hot women.
That was kind of fucked up because they had a come to Jesus meeting with each other.
Yeah, they did.
You still there?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Sorry, you cut out for a second.
Oh.
All right.
Maybe it's Max Headroom.
Okay. So next, Troy Wood says, "It's remarkable how much the show still feels like it's only 20 minutes into the future. I mean, the technology is now pretty dated, but the idea of a future dystopia run by massive media conglomerates while the general populace drowns in squalor and ignorance is still
Welcome
pretty
to
sound.
2023.
Yes, pretty much. We've got Fox News over there. We've got CNN over there. We've got BBC over there. And
Disney over there.
Yeah, Disney Plus streaming the MCU and Star Wars over that way. You'll find me there.
And then the trash bin next to it, too.
You leave HBO Max alone.
It's talking Disney.
Well, you said the trash. I was like, people at home, I love HBO Max up until this month. It's going to start getting shitty real quick. All right, let's see here. We've got Philip Basket says, "I was all about Max. I watched him on ABC and Cinemax. I read the book, and I freaking loved the whole thing. It should have been bigger than what it was." I think so. Like, this was smarter than Alf, and Alf was a fucking household name. There was a lot worse that was a lot more popular on the air at that time. And let's see, we've got Mil Machetes that says, "I watched the original. It was ahead of its time. I was so glad to see it. Oh, I'm sorry. I was so sad to see it go." It's like, really, dude? Come on. "I was reminded recently of Max Headroom while watching Biden stutter his words and glitch in real time." They've got the same haircut too. And then lastly, we've got Stacey Alexander that says, I remember the commercials more than the show. What I do recall of the show, it felt very ahead of its time. Yes, again, it was very classic in its storytelling, but it was very modern with its antagonists. And that you didn't see so much. Like, stations would never have called themselves bad guys in the 70s, 60s, 50s, whatever. Everything was plain and decent. We got
I
to
would
the
agree.
80s and we get to this, and life's a little bit more dystopian 20 minutes from now. And they made a future that was dark and gritty, but a lot of those things have come to pass.
Yep, 20 minutes from now could be any 20 minutes from now.
Yep. So whatever you're taking, make sure it triggers in within 15 minutes. You got a good 5 minutes before everything goes to shit.
Exactly.
And that is all we had for social media this week.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in for Max Headroom, starring Matt Frewer, Jeffrey Tambor, Amanda Pays. We had a great time talking this show with you. Hey, thank you again for everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Hooray! We did it.
Make sure you check us out on all of our social media platforms. We got Facebook, Twitter. We are at Suns and Shadows. We're also on Instagram at Suns and Shadows Cast. We are at SunsAndShadows.com. Thank you again, everybody, and we'll see you down the road.